Okay, Jill, we are live on YouTube.
So, hi everyone. I'm very happy to be here with you and share this talk on how to build a cactus and succulents collection. This program is happening thanks to the partnership with the Augusta Memorial Public Library, the Clear Lake, Almery, and Ellsworth Library. So, hello everyone. My name is Jael Wall, and I'm very happy to be here with you in this presentation. So a little bit more about me. I work for the IUCN Cactus and Succulent Plants Specialist Group, and my role is a program officer. So I serve a little bit here and there with the administrative work, with the communications, and also with assessing cactus and succulents plants. And my role and partnership is thanks to the Desert Botanical Garden in Phoenix. So I was living there until very recently, and I have just moved to Eau Claire. And since I moved to Eau Claire, I am part of the Forest Street community garden. And recently, I was able to pass my onboarding test to become a master gardener. So plants are not just a hobby, they're also part of my work. And so just a little bit more of what is the IUCN. The IUCN is the oldest organization that treats conservation in the world. Perhaps you have heard about the IUCN Red List. That is a tool that let us know the health of the diversity of animals and plants. So anytime that you hear that the species is going to go extinct, that has recovered from extinction, that is a tool that has been created by the IUCN Red List. Okay, so to start, I just want to do a little teeny tiny trivia. And of course, it would be fun if we were all in the same room, but you can just think these answers in your head or just type them if you want to. So the first question is, are cacti and succulents found where? We can just find them in the Americas. That would be North, Central, and South America, or only in Africa, or pretty much anywhere in the world. So cacti and succulents are usually associated with warm areas as deserts, but there are some species that are actually quite cold hardy. So we can find a lot of native cactus and succulents super high up north, like here in Wisconsin. So these are some examples. We have first the hens and chicks succulents. We have the picture here. Their scientific genus name is Semper vivum. Semper means always in Latin, and vivum means alive. So they're always alive. Their hardiness zone is from 3 to 11. So for an idea, 3 is most of Wisconsin, and 11 it's super hot, like some places in Florida. And then other cactus that can be found all the way here naturally is the prickly pear cactus. So this cactus here is an Opuntia homifusa, and it can be found in zones 4, like here, and all the way up to down to Phoenix in Arizona. So now the second question is, do you think that cactus and succulents are mostly green, but also brown? Are they super colorful and with many textures, and they are just maybe green plants? So cacti and succulents, they are very colorful, and you can find them in many, many shapes, forms, textures, and colors. So we have here first this Santa Rita prickly pear that has this lovely purple color with these super bright yellow flowers. Then we have these sticks on fire, and some people call them pencil cactus. I put that name in parentheses because they actually are not cactus. Species from the Euphorbia genus are not cactus. They kind of get this reddish and orange color. Then we have this black knight or black prince that has this very dark purple that is almost like a black color. And then we have the agave tequilana, and commonly known as blue agave, that has this blue teal color and is actually the plant that is used to produce tequila. And the last question, are cacti succulents? Yes, no, maybe. So this is the question that we're going to use to actually start our presentation. So these are the three topics that we will be covering today. We're going to learn what are cacti and succulents. We're going to learn also how to build a healthy and beautiful collection, learning what is the best soil, how to water them and propagate them. And we're also going to learn a little bit of bad news, how our crazy love for these super cute plants is perhaps driving them to the extinction. Okay, so what are cacti and succulents? Succulents are plants that have parts in their structure that are thickened, and that is because they want to store water to survive long periods of drought in arid climates. So we have first this Echeveria plant that we see that it has the leaves thickened. Then we have this baseball plant that is actually the stem that is thickened, and as an evolutionary trait, it has loosened like the leaves and it has turned them into spines. And then we have this elephant's foot that has also thickened the stem, but it hasn't, that still has the leaves. And finally, we have this Joshua tree that it also has thickened a little bit the stem, and also it has hardened the leaves. So like that, they don't lose a lot of water. And now we have cacti. Cacti are succulents, but not the reverse. And here we have in the first picture a saguaro cactus that is native to the Sonoran Desert that is located in Arizona and also the state of Sonora in Mexico, that has this very cool structure that is super long and big. Then we have these Galapagos prickly pear. These are called like arboreal cactus because they look like trees pretty much. And then we have this golden barrel cactus that have this globular shape that is like a globe. They are round cactus. And then we also have cactus that don't have the traditional shape, like this mistletoe cactus that they look more like they climb and they like growing on forests and trees. And actually, this mistletoe cactus is the only species of cactus that lives outside the Americas because cacti are native to North, Central, and South America, but nowhere else except these species here that is believed that migrated at some point to Africa, actually. So, what makes a cactus a cactus? So, cacti are distinct from the other succulents because they have these small round noodles that are found in their body that they are known as areoles. And these structures are very important because these are the ones that are going to let them grow flowers and spines. So we have here another one in a different cactus and this other one here. So now let's talk about how we can build a healthy collection now that we know more a little bit of these species. Um, we need to remember that the structures that these plants have developed has helped them to survive long periods of drought in arid climates. So, of course, we need to be very careful with the soil that we use for them. We want to have a soil mixture that drains quickly and easily. So, mostly that would mean that we want sand in our soil. So, if we want to plant them in our backyard or in a planter, we want to have a sandy soil mainly. So, the water is not going to get stuck there in the plant. In the case of water, succulents and especially cacti, they like an acidic pH in their water. So what I usually do is I harvest rainwater and I water them with that. So that also forces me to stop overwatering them because it's very common that we want to love them so much that we keep watering too often. And in the case of cacti, if you overwater them and they rot, it's kind of hard to save them. In the case of succulents, it's easier to save them, but just think that it's easier to overwater one of these plants. So just water them with rainwater. We don't have rain super often, so that will also slow you down in how much you water them. And if you have these plants in planters, it's very important that that planters have a drainage hole. Now it's kind of trendy to have these super cute planters. They don't have a hole, and it's very likely that they are going to kill your plants. I have already tried that. I had this cactus on a plastic planter, like how you buy them, and then I just put it on top of a very cute planter. I have done that with other plants, and they're just fine, but it's still not enough drainage for a cactus. So just make sure that you have good drainage. Also, the material of the planter is important. In this picture, we have like terracotta planters, so they are very porous, so it's going to let the soil breathe. So that's better if you have like a ceramic planter that has this shiny coating. It's probably not too good for the soil to breathe. And lastly, sun. For these plants, it's very important to have enough light, about 6 hours per day. I know that here in Wisconsin, it's hard sometimes to have 6 hours. So just try to have them as close as possible to a window so they get as much direct sunlight as they can. And of course, you don't want the leaves of your succulents to touch the windows because when it's super cold, it will freeze. But yeah, just try to place them in a windowsill that they will get enough sunlight. So I'm going to give you some examples of cacti and succulent that actually can thrive in zone 4, where we are now. So zone 4 is north, central, and western Wisconsin. And this zone or hardening zone were created by the USDA. So it kind of like divides the country in areas according to the extreme minimum temperature. So in our case, temperatures go as low as -30 Fahrenheit. So we have to take that in mind if you want to have these plants outdoors and even indoors because it's going to be cold and we won't have enough sunlight. So in the case of cacti, we have this spiny star that is like a round small cacti that has this very beautiful fuchsia flowers. And these cactus can be found in their natural habitat up to Manitoba. So it's very cold hardy. And then we have these prickly pears here. We have the eastern prickly pear cactus and the brittle prickly pear, and they can be found naturally here. Um, my mother-in-law has one of these in her backyard and it grows as a weed. So you want to be careful when you grow them that they don't just like expand in your backyard. So perhaps you want to have them somehow contained. But yes, these plants can thrive here in this weather. And in the case of succulents, we have the stone crops. For example, we have this dragon blood that is very cool. I love this red color. Also, we have the lime twister sedum that it has this mixture of red and green colors. And stone crops are native from the Middle East, Europe, and Africa, but especially they are abundant in the northern hemisphere, so they are going to thrive here in this weather. And also we can have hands and cheeks. We have this Sempervivum mahogany that is very beautiful. The Sempervivums are characterized by this very cool rosette shape. And we have the Sempervivum red lion that is mostly red. So now let's learn how we can propagate our cacti. So I'm going to show you how to propagate a prickly pear. That those were the species that we saw that we can have and they thrive here. So what you want to do is take a mature path off from the plant with a clean knife I have to advise you that prickly pears have a lot of teeny tiny spines, so you want to be wearing gloves. You don't want those gloves to touch anything or anyone later. You want to be sure that you're not going to have spines all over yourself. And then what you want to do is let the pot callus. What it means that you want that wound where you made the cut to dry. So you want to have it in like a shady place and you want to leave it there for about 2 weeks. So like here in the picture, you can see that the wound is dry. And once the wound is dry, you can actually plant them. You want to make sure that you have a planter with drainage, that the soil is going to be also having enough drainage. And you just put a little bit of water there and you cannot just let it be. And in about a month, roots will start coming out. In the case of succulents, we can have two kinds of propagations. You can propagate them by leaves or by cuttings. So in the first picture, we have this leaf. We have this kind of scissor cutting the leaf. But actually, what you want to do is pull or twist the leaf from the stem. And you want to choose one of the mature leaves. So you want to choose one of the leaves that is in the bottom of the rosette, not the young ones, because it's quite likely that they will not be able to make it. And in the case of cuttings, you can use a pair of clean, sharp scissors, and you want to cut the top of the succulent or this new offshoot. And then again, you want to make them callus, both the leaf or the cutting. In this case, they dry out faster than cacti, so a couple of days, 3, 5 days, they will be dry. So in the case of leaves, you just want to place them on top of soil and water them a little bit, and they will start producing roots. And in the case of cuttings, you actually want to like plant them and cover the base with soil and also just put a little bit of water and make sure that they have enough sunlight. You don't want to have them outdoors when you just recently propagate them because they're kind of weak. They don't have the rest of the plant to provide food and water and nutrients. So you want to have them still receiving enough sunlight, but you want to have them indoors. And now we're going to talk about the downsides of our love of cacti. So maybe we don't know about these bad news, but I think it's good that we learn about them. So actually, 1/3 of all cactus species are at risk of extinction. And this is information that was published in a 2015 scientific paper. And also we have found that many succulents are also at risk of extinction. And here I have two pieces of news that are quite recently. The first one from the Washington Post from 2019, and I'm going to read the headline. It says, beloved on Instagram, succulents are vanishing from state parks. Officials blame a foreign black market. So what it has been happening for a long time now is that these succulent plants, Tutleia, that are found in California. So people, well, because COVID, people are not flying that much, but before people were flying, renting a car, just driving through the national parks and illegally picking them up, smuggling them in their suitcases, and then selling them in Europe and Asia because there is a big black market there that people want them. And usually, what happens is that these plants have been used to live in the wild, so they are used to these rough conditions. So actually, when you put them in a planter in a pot by a windowsill, it's quite likely that they will die because they are not used to live indoors. And then we have this other piece of news from the New York Times that is is very recent, is from 2021, from February. And it's about a woman that was trying to bring to New Zealand cacti and succulents. So she had used like these stockings and filled them with about 1,000 Cacti and Succulents, and she was trying to bring them inside, and it was detection dog that smelled that something wasn't okay, and she was stopped. And it's not that these plants are just taken outside of the country; they are also being illegally moved inside the country. So in Arizona, the Saguaro National Park, since I think 2013, they have been implanting these chips inside the plants to reduce the illegal poaching. So where cactus are, they have a special different law. So you cannot touch them, you cannot move them without a special permit. And because they are so cool and beautiful, people want them like to have in their, I'm not, to improve their color appeal, for example. So here I have this piece of news, and it was from 2015. And then they are interviewing this U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service detective, and he was saying that in the last 10 years, this problem has increased. There are more and more people illegally removing these plants from their native habitats to sell them for a lot of money. And he also mentions how hard it is for them to stop this illegal trade from cactus in the Southwest. And something that I would like to say is that people usually think that it's just like animals that are being in the illegal trade, but it usually happens with plants too. So, but we're just not too aware of them. So how we can build an ethical collection? Because as a consumer, you have the responsibility to do a purchase that is not going to drive these species to extinction. So anytime that you're going to go online, don't type rare, because usually when you type the word rare, it means that you're going to try to buy a plant that is not usually found in plant stores and nurseries. So if it is not commercially produced, it usually means that it's going to be removed from the wildlife. So be aware on how you're doing your plant search. Never type something like rare or exotic, because you are quite likely going to find plants that have been illegally removed from their natural habitats. And then when you go to plant store and nursery, it's quite likely that here in Wisconsin, we're not going to have anything illegal going on, because these plants can be very pricey. So if you find a plant that is extremely pricey, then it perhaps means that is illegal. And if you have your doubts, what you should do is ask the person in charge of the store or the nursery, is like, hey, do you have permits? Do you grow these plants from seeds? Just to be sure that they are not being removed illegally from the wild. And lastly, it's important we are curious about our purchases, not just plants, but like everything in general. So if you are concerned about a species that perhaps you want to purchase and you don't know if it is okay to purchase it or not, what I suggest is that you go to the IUCN Red List. The IUCN Red List doesn't just have the species that are going to go extinct. We try to have all the species from animals, plants, pretty much everything there. And you can learn about how they're doing in their natural habitat, if they are doing fine. And if they're not doing so good, you know that perhaps buying that plant is not a good idea. And in the case of the barrel cactus that I showed you earlier, that plant, it's native to Central and Eastern Mexico, and it's almost extinct in the wild. So you don't find it if you go to their natural habitat. But it has been cultivated in nurseries for horticulture for a long time. So in that case, that plant will say that it's okay to buy it, because most of the plants that are being sold in the stores and online, they are produced legally, and it's not being removed from the wild. And yeah, I think that's it. I don't know if anyone has any question.
Someone is asking, is a jade plant a succulent?
Yes, it is a succulent.
And is it hardy in zone 4?
Just let me check. So what happens is usually when you talk about the common name, they are not all called the same. That's why I was trying to have always the scientific name next to it. So let me see what is. So it's probably going to be fine indoors, but it's not going to be fine outdoors. This plant is native to South Africa. So, of course, if you go to the mountains of South Africa, you have cold weather there. But just thinking where it's native from, it will give us an idea of like, would it thrive in my backyard here in Eau Claire, Wisconsin? Perhaps not, but you can have it indoors, providing enough sun, good soil, and drainage. I think it could thrive indoors.
Thank you. Also, someone is asking, is an air plant a succulent?
So there are different kinds of herb plants. I'm going to, yeah. So in the case of orchids, they can be called air plants because they don't have like a root that needs to be inside the soil. It's just like the roots are in the air and they grab the humidity from around the air. So not all air plants are succulents. We do have cactus that are like orchids. They're called orchid cactus. So they do also grab the humidity from the environment instead of having roots that are in the soil. So some yes are, but not all of them.
Okay, and then someone else is asking, one of my succulents, I think it's a common name, is helicopter plant, starts to shrivel up and die, even though other succulents that live in the same planter are just fine. Do you know what causes this?
How are the leaves looking like? Were you watering them in the same amount? Also, I don't know, sometimes just check if they're, sometimes I have plants that are in the same location, but they don't have the same planter. So if they're like succulents that are very sensitive to the amount of water that I put on them, just check if that's the case. Maybe it doesn't have enough drainage or the soil is not good enough. But as I mentioned before, succulents are easier to save if they are just feeling like dying than cactus. So what you can do is just to be sure that you don't completely lose your plant, as I showed how to do the propagation by leaves or cuttings, try to do that separately while you try to investigate what is going on with your plant and your planter, the soil, and perhaps the amount of water that you are giving it.
Okay, I'm currently not seeing any more questions.
If you have any more questions, this is my contact information. And also, I had asked if it could be shared two links. One link talks more deeply about the legal trade of cactus and succulents, and the other link is the website to the cactus and succulent plant specialist group. So you can find more information in general about cacti and succulents. And also, if you have any question, you can reach out to me.
Oh, there is one other question. Can we grow hens and chicks outside as perennials?
Yes, you could do it. As like the plants that I showed that were hardy to zone 4, you can grow those outdoors. If they're going to be outdoors, then you don't want them to be in a planter. You want to have the roots in like the soil, so they are protected from cold weather. But yes, they will survive. They won't look super nice during winter, but they will survive. They are meant to be living in this kind of weather.
Okay, thank you very much. That was a great presentation.